Hey everyone, my name is Matt Cromwell. I am head of support at GiveWP.com and one of the lead admins of the Advanced WordPress Facebook group. And this is our second series of our Gutenberg interview series. And we are doing this series for the month of February. Last week we interviewed Joost de Valk from Joost.com and talking about how plugin authors can get ready for Gutenberg specifically. And next week, we're going to be talking with an automatician, Tammy Lister. She's a UX designer, and she'll be bringing all of her knowledge of how Gutenberg is designed to be usable and friendly for end users. And also, as she is a core committer to Gutenberg, she'll be able to give us all the insight into what that's like and what kind of planning and whatnot they've done there. We're excited for the whole series. We're excited to have everybody here. If you are in the AWP group right now, you can comment on this thread in order to tell us what you think. We see the comments coming in, and we're going to do basically a 20-minute interview right now with me and our guest today, Ahmad Awais. And then after that, we're going to do about a 20 or 25-minute AMA session. You will get to ask Ahmad any of your questions that have been bothering you, any questions that you have about extending Gutenberg, because that's what we're talking about today, is being a developer in a Gutenberg world and how to extend it, which is something that Ahmad has been doing for quite a while, and he's been leading that front. So let's jump into it. Ahmad, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for the great introduction. So I'm Ahmad Awais, and I'm a full-time full-stack WordPress developer. I'm a WordPress advocate, and I've been contributing to the WordPress core software for a couple of years. I love the WordPress community, and WordPress is more than just a software to me. It has actually helped me find my life partner, Maida Batul. She's also a WordPress core contributor. And together we build and write a lot of open source software, about hundreds of open source software packages that I've open sourced at GitHub. And about over 25,000 developers worldwide are using the software packages that I've written. 500,000 downloads of my WordPress plugins. And I know of developers working at Google and Facebook and other giant tech companies that are using the code that I have written. And that is one of the things that I love about the WordPress community and the open source software. Beyond that, I run the local WordPress meetups. I'm the country lead for DigitalOcean. And at the core of my heart, I'm actually a teacher. And I'm share what you know kind of a guy. So truly excited to be here and talking about.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much for being on with us today. Tell us a little bit about your general thoughts on Gutenberg in general. How did you like it when you first looked at it? How do you think development has been going over about almost a year now? It's been at least a year now. It's been developing. Tell us your general thoughts.
Yeah, a great initiative, and coming from someone from a developer's point of view, a developer who writes code for WordPress for a decade, someone who writes more than like 30,000 words a week, and who is also passionate about the JavaScript community. I'm truly WordPress community is cooking called Gutenberg, and I'm really happy with the particular approach that WordPress has taken in general of adopting the the WordPress community and the JavaScript, connecting it with the JavaScript community, and moving into that direction. Because I personally believe that with Gutenberg, we'll have a better writing experience, and the JavaScript community will bring its good parts as the bad parts to the WordPress community. And talking about the good parts, I think better jobs, better salaries, and the better development and coding standards. And last but not the least, I think WordPress themes are going to be much better with WordPress Gutenberg out there in the code. So that's where I am right now.
Yep, that's an interesting thought on how Gutenberg being very JavaScript and React based is going to basically create better jobs in the WordPress ecosystem. And I think I agree with that. But like one part of that too is I think a lot of developers feel like, you know, a lot of people come into WordPress because they don't know development very well, and WordPress is an easy place to learn code. What do you think about in terms of that? Maybe this is going to result in less WordPress developers. Is this going to edge some people out? I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of agree with you there that the development for WordPress is going to be a bit more scary from here on outward. But it's just just that Gutenberg is new, and if once you get a hang of it, and you just know that basically what I personally believe is that using modern JavaScript and tools like Webpack and React is just more complex because of the configuration part of it. You know, it takes like 10 or 20 hours to just configure that setup and start writing your first Hello World Guten-block or whatnot. And once you get that part out of the way and you learn the basics of Gutenberg, you start to really see the value in using this modern JavaScript with WordPress. The things, because I have been building this theme for Gutenberg, and the things that I used to do with a lot of PHP and a lot of hacking around in the templates and whatnot, that all of that is very, very easy with Gutenberg. You only have to write JavaScript, and everything, you know, kind of get taken care of. And one important thing you need to learn is attributes of the blocks. And once you know about that, you really start to feel the power of Gutenberg as a standalone software. So yeah, it will be harder for the new developers to get started. But once you start, you will start to also appreciate why we are moving into that direction.
Well, to that point, another strength of the WordPress community is how much we love to educate each other in coding practices. And honestly, like that's one thing that you in particular have been really, really good at is basically when you learn something, you publish it and you put it out there. That's why you call yourself an open sourcer. That's something that I've always admired about the way that you contribute to the WordPress community. And one of the very first things that you did with Gutenberg is produce a boilerplate, a Gutenberg block boilerplate. Can you tell us a little? That was like also maybe like 9 months ago. It was right now in the Gutenberg world. It feels like forever ago. But tell us a little bit about your inspiration behind the block boilerplate and how that went for you overall.
Okay, so actually, funny little story there. So Maida and I write a lot of content, and we published more than 200 WordPress related articles, and we wrote them using the WordPress editor back in 2015. And we were quite frustrated with all the user experience and with the tools like Medium out there. We knew that something could be improved. And so we started building this thing, which we called at that moment Righty, which was supposed to be our WordPress, a new WordPress editor. It was supposed to be a SaaS platform. We spent like 6 months into that code. Back in December 2016, we got married. We took like 2 months off. We came back, and everyone in the community was kind of building. But we had been betting our business on for last 6 months, and they were building it for free, and they were calling it Gutenberg. So yeah, so naturally I was a bit, it took me with a bit of a surprise. I had a chat with Matthias and Rayad, and especially Join. So my first thought was to not launch what I had been building. It was, we were like halfway there, like 43% of that was complete. So we started right there, and both of us jumped right into the Gutenberg core code base. 2 or 3 months in June 2016, in June 2017, I guess, we built this Gutenberg boilerplate, and the sole purpose for it was to, get the community excited about this project and see and kind of validate the idea of Gutenberg. And I was also kind of afraid that maybe Gutenberg is just like another MP6 project that we all love to hate and talk about. But I also wanted to validate the idea that if either Gutenberg is going to actually make it to the core in a year or not, am I just leaving my everything behind just because A lot of community is doing this, but that Gutenberg boilerplate has actually helped me understand that a lot of WordPress developers are pretty much excited about what's next. They are trying to, take a look at it. They are trying to build their custom blocks, and I've actually received, quite a lot of Gutenberg boilerplate related feedback, and it's a lot of related. It's also related to Gutenberg as well. So that is why I built it, and why I was like 6 months before. Why I did 6 months before than anyone started getting excited about Gutenberg in general.
Nice. I'm here in downtown San Diego, so I have actually a bit of street noise going on. Apologies, everybody. After you built the boilerplate, Gutenberg really evolved a lot. And actually, one thing I heard from a lot of developers, and even within my own team, is that we basically were saying that we don't want to build too much right now because Gutenberg is evolving so much and changing so much. And it did, and I think your boilerplate still is applicable. I've seen people build some blocks with it just recently, actually. But you took it a next step further, and you went in and created another tool called the Guten-block toolkit. Can you tell us a little bit about your toolkit and what your inspiration for that was?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this create-guten-block toolkit that I have created. And the initial thought behind it was exactly what you just described. Everything in Gutenberg was changing. And since we were, kind of adopting React into the WordPress core, and there's this huge app called Create React app, the idea of Create React kind of, dawned on me. Why is it that way? And why they have, kind of hidden away every thing related to the configuration of Webpack and creating a React app for that particular idea. So with Gutenberg boilerplate out there, developers started talking to me about what they wanted. They wanted easy to configure Webpack configuration. They wanted to have some sort of standard ESLint plus prettier configuration. And some people wanted me to build a boilerplate for Babel. And I started building these projects, and all of a sudden, all of this code felt a lot harder for me to just explain to other developers that what I have built and how they can use it. So naturally, I started building what we call right now create-guten-block. Using create-guten-block is what I would recommend you to do if you're starting with Gutenberg right now. And 1 month from now, I'm gonna kind of depreciate Gutenberg boilerplate because of this project. What create-guten-block helps you do is it helps you create a WordPress plugin which is pre-configured, and all of the configuration related to Babel, related to Webpack and ESLint and everything related to React is kind of hidden in one small package called CGB-scripts. And I, along with about 10 other contributors to this project, are going to make sure that we keep that particular single package up to date. And in your Gutenberg related plugins, all you have to do is have one single dependency which will keep updating, and you won't have to worry about if either you are using Webpack behind the scene, either it is Parcel.js or either it is Gulp. We will take care of that. We don't want to. I personally don't want that a normal WordPress developer should start worrying about if Parcel.js, which is the new Webpack in the JavaScript community, is the right one, or if Webpack 4.0, which is going to be a huge feat, is the right tool to start using before while building Gutenberg blocks. So what I want you people to do is just create one single block related plugin with create-guten-block. It will have just one single dependency, and that dependency will keep updating behind the scene. It will keep adopting whatever the changes Gutenberg is going to, deploy in coming months. And any code that you write will naturally work. All the changes would be at the, kind of hidden in the node modules. Moreover, I don't lock you into this concept. You can easily eject your plugin out of create-guten-block and start configuring things on your own. but you still get, at least, let's say 10 to 20 hours of a head start if you start your Gutenberg plugin with create-guten-block kit. And
Nice.
It's not a boilerplate. It actually generates a boilerplate.
Yeah. Nice. That's interesting. Cool. Well, tell us a little bit about what kind of advice do you have for developers in general? Developers, besides, of course, jumping into your toolkit, what kind of advice do you have for developers who want to get into developing a Gutenberg block or developing a theme specifically for Gutenberg, or learning some of these new coding languages that they're going to have to learn, even just learning some basic React and things like that? Like, what do you suggest in terms of getting into that kind of development?
Okay, that is actually a great question. To answer this question, I have a very particular and focused advice. I'd recommend you to start now, because if you don't start now, the tooling related to Gutenberg will get so complex that you will kind of end up falling behind this or whatever is happening in the community. So now or never. And that is pretty generic to say, but what I'm looking at a lot of plugin developers and a lot of theme developers who are doing it wrong. There are actually a lot of developers who are building blocks, but they are kind of migrating from the mindset that we just need to support Gutenberg. We just need to make sure that our shortcodes are better rendered in Gutenberg, and that's it. I would not go there. Personally, where I sit now, I might change this belief in a coming month or so. But right now, I would recommend you to move off of shortcodes and move into blocks. Start thinking like a block, and whatever options that you kind of need to build into your theme, go with customizer there, because the general concept is that customizer will start supporting Gutenberg by the end of the season. So having all of these options in Gutenberg, having all of these options in customizer and your shortcut block in the form of blocks will actually make you feel quite more powerful than you feel right now about your products. Don't try to, what I'm kind of trying to say here is, don't just convert your shortcodes into a block. Really move off of shortcodes and start creating blocks. Start using the Gutenberg API. Don't just create a migration script to, to pull support for Gutenberg. That is the wrong thing to do. And a lot of great plugins are doing this. I would want you to use the Gutenberg inspector. I would want you to use the Gutenberg, register block API, and slowly and steadily, let's say in 2 years from now, I would want you to move off of, Surge API. And as far as the learning part of things are involved, I think modern JavaScript is what you should write in. I have heard a lot of developers say that because modern JavaScript is so hard to learn and everything is like complex and messy around it, I'm happy to writing ES5, the old JavaScript. What I would like to tell you is that you can actually write your old JavaScript and just adopt the modern JavaScript features, one feature at a time. And it will still work with, the Webpack configuration that I have built or anyone have built. And in that progressive manner, you can start learning how cool it is and how easy it is to use the modern JavaScript. The difference that I would like to tell you in between old JavaScript is versus modern JavaScript is that modern JavaScript actually makes it easier for you as a developer to write JavaScript.
Nice.
So that's about it, I guess.
Great. Everybody, if you're watching this live right now, I see a bunch of activity on the Facebook feed right now. But if you are watching live, this is your opportunity to start asking questions to Ahmad that we will highlight on the screen, and he will answer live here. I have one last question for him, so start prepping your questions now and start putting them into that Facebook feed, and we'll get them queued up for you. My last question, Ahmad, is what kind of cool things are you working on for 2018? What is some new stuff that you're going to be doing that we should be watching out for and that you're excited about?
That's a great question again. So I have built a lot of free and open source software in the past, and I have actually scheduled 4 more FOSS projects related to Gutenberg and JavaScript particularly. So there's that. But I'm truly excited to announce that I spent this thousands of dollars buying this cool little 5-letter domain called writy.io, writy.io, the same editor concept that I was building back in 2016. So I have moved off of that concept. Maida and I have partnered with an incredible designer, Rich Tabber from ThemeBeans, and together we are building a kind of a first Gutenberg WordPress theme, which will not support anything. It might not be backward compatible. The idea here is to build a theme for writers, and kind of use the Gutenberg API to do it. And we're halfway through, and we might be releasing it next. And we are truly excited about that one. So if you would like to, get notifications related to that, you can go at writy.io and put in your email address there.
Nice. Great. Well, we're jumping into the AMA questions, and we got one here from Justin Labadie already. So I'm queuing that up. Justin says, question, what has been the biggest challenge you've had with building the Gutenberg block toolkit? What was the biggest challenge?
Okay, the biggest challenge, I think, related to Gutenberg, the toolkit was that I built this toolkit entirely with JavaScript, and the issue that I had was that most of the people would want to build Gutenberg-related blocks and have them enclosed in one single WordPress plugin and not create, related plugins. So since I was building it before anyone have actually started building these plugins, where you could, include blocks inside of multiple blocks inside of a single WordPress plugin. So I had to spend a lot of time building and then rebuilding the architecture of the plugin. And if you go ahead at the create-guten-block GitHub repository, you can explore the examples folder where you will have example Gutenberg plugins that I have built with this Gutenberg toolkit. And right now, with the idea of having ESLint plus a prettier in a WordPress environment, so that is also a big challenge. But these big challenges is where I need your help from you guys, and I've kind of solved a lot of those to help a normal WordPress developer to start writing Hello World Gutenberg plugin in a few seconds. Nice.
Yeah. No, I really like that whole concept. That, I mean, as I am a developer, but I mean I'm a very self-created developer. I taught myself everything. I made 10 times more mistakes than I made great stuff. And I'm just, like people say, I'm a dangerous hack. Like I definitely, that's not totally true. I do a good job. I have stuff out there that works, and it comes together. But when I look for tools, I look for things exactly like your create-guten-block that essentially is basically drop it in and it's going to do the job for you that you need. But the one thing I always notice with things like that is that it's a crutch. It's great. It enables me to build my block, to focus on building a Gutenberg block, which is the task. Like I need to build a Gutenberg block. But if I want to learn about ESLint, well, I could dig into your code, and that'll help me learn about ESLint. But actually, like a long time ago, first getting into SaaS, I used a lot of different frameworks and things to learn it. But it wasn't until I actually built my first real grunt script way back in the day that I actually started to learn SaaS really well, So I love tools like this because it helps you to build the thing, but I also want to learn it a bit myself. Here's another question. I'm going to butcher his name, so let's just show it. For lots of us who have themes in WP.org repo, how would you suggest we update the themes? Convert everything into blocks and push everything in a major theme update, or gradually convert sections into block and update frequently? It's a good question. And it's good for you right now since you're getting into your theme yourself. So
Yeah. So actually, setting a theme right now for Gutenberg, and I don't have a user base to support and have a user base to support. So a natural, a rule of thumb is said in the last week, interview, that you should support the classic editor for 3 years from when it gets into the core. So I'm actually quite a big fan of this staircase mentality for any sort of code. So you actually write a code which is like a staircase. It's an escalator that is moving along automatically. Even if that escalator breaks, it's still a staircase, and people can still go down or come up because nothing is actually broken. So similarly, I would recommend you to, start progressively, start converting and adding features related to Gutenberg, and activate them only if Gutenberg is there in the core or is installed as a plugin as of now. And do not deprecate code related to your, classic editor and whatnot, at least not in next 2 years. So what I am suggesting here is create blocks, but still keep your backward compatibility from 2 years, and do it in a progressive manner, create shortcuts, and then go from there.
Nice. That's good. That's good advice for sure. I have a question from Jake Hawks. He likes my dangerous hack. Yeah. Not everybody likes my dangerous hack if you're a user. I would like to know Ahmad's thoughts on CPT and meta fields, and if these existing features need migration to a Guten plugin. Good question.
Yeah, well, that is actually a dangerous question because we are in the territory which is still not decided upon. A lot of discussion is happening related to meta fields and Metaboxes related to Gutenberg. My personal feeling is I actually kind of prefixed this interview with that feeling that you should start thinking like with a block mentality. When you are building with Gutenberg, everything should be a block, because while building this Gutenberg theme, we were stuck with building a new page template like we used to do in our old version of themes. You would build a page template and a user would be able to just switch to that template and fill in the Metabox data for them to fix. But in Gutenberg, you can't really do that. And instead of spending my time trying to migrate my Metabox related code into meta fields or custom fields for Gutenberg, I spent my time around building a dynamic Gutenberg block that actually works anywhere you want. So you would just publish a homepage, a simple WordPress page. You will make it the homepage, and you will include that loop or blog role block, and it will have options in right there inspector, where a user would be able to switch from how he wants to look at the blog role. Should the featured imagery be there, or should those be only links with some excerpts down there? I actually really like it. A user can actually use that block inside of a post as well. So I'd rather have you look into how to convert building a block instead of looking how to migrate to your Metaboxes to metafields. That is where I am right now. But you can definitely convert your Metabox code to Gutenberg.
Yep, nice. That makes a lot of sense. A guy on our team, Kevin Hoffman, he's a great contributor to Gutenberg as well in a lot of different ways. He talks a lot about the separation between I'm going to mess it up. I wish I actually had him on right now, but the way he talks about the difference between presentation and configuration, I think that's how he says it, presentation and configuration, and the way how we would basically be able to get rid of a lot of post-meta stuff that's just cruft and make that be the configuration of a block instead. So you get to configure your block, and once that block is in there, it's already configured, and then you could just focus on the actual content of that block. So I think that's an exciting development that will actually clean up a lot of stuff in Gutenberg in the long run. But yeah, next question. Ben Meredith, he's also on our team. He's a great guy. He asked questions last week, and I gave him a hard time. Someone has built a Gutenberg integration for my plugin using create-guten-block, yay, which creates Gutenberg blocks from any existing shortcodes. While I'm very excited about that, I don't really know how to develop locally using these technologies and to contribute, test, iterate on this new PR. Is there a primer on maintaining Guten blocks for dummies that you can point me to? That's a really good question.
So I'm actually quite happy that people are using create-guten-block and they're already contributing, migration scripts or creating blocks for plugins of other developers. But I'd rather point you to a handbook right now. And I actually can tell you that a few of awesome community members are building a huge Gutenberg-related guide and Zach Gordon hash related to Gutenberg. But you should definitely check out all of this in this order. You should definitely go to the handbook right now, take a look at it, and try to create a block and come up with you are unable to solve. The Gutenberg core team is actually quite responsive on GitHub. You can ask a lot of questions there. You can see what they are doing there. Once this project matures, which is going to happen quite soon, as of you would be able to see the documentation updated in a way that will help you a lot better than it can right now. But definitely go to the handbook, take a look at what Zach's course looks like, and if you wait for a while, you'll have an awesome community resource. Even I am actually writing a Gutenberg-related series on, Talk Magazine, able to, build all of this. And if you use create-guten-block, I hate to, shamelessly plug it again and again, but I actually built this, toolkit to answer questions just like yours that you won't need to learn anything new if you use create-guten-block. Just, to try it out, and you'll see that you can easily write the code you used to write without caring about how to configure any of that Babel and Webpack. And when you're comfortable, you can easily eject out of it.
Nice. Great. We have a good queue of questions coming in still, so let's keep going. Question from Cristiano. Hi, and thanks for this live. Is it near the moment where we can say goodbye to sidebar or header or the footer? It's an interesting question. I like it. It's interesting. It's very conceptual, though. It's hard to say for sure. What's your thought on it, Ahmad?
I think so. Your question comes from a point where you're looking at building a theme, and there's a sidebar and header footer, and customizing these three things is completely different right now while using Gutenberg. What I have seen, this awesome developer called Western Ritter, who kind of leads the customizer component in the WordPress core, he has kind of built a prototype which aligns Gutenberg with Customizer in a way that when you open Customizer, you actually can customize the sidebar, the header and footer inside of Gutenberg. So there is where I think we are headed, and these widgets in the sidebar and the menus in your header and footer and other details. In near future, I think these things might just be a set of blocks, but I can't say for sure right now. Though these things are not going anywhere. We are just talking about the editor area. We are just standardizing how you build a site and not just write, and how you build a site with rich content and make sure you don't have to, write a lot of shortcodes. Actually, you can search the same shortcode name, and now it is a block. You don't have to mess around with any sort of code. So there's where we are right now. And I'm hoping that Customizer will catch up with that very soon.
Good. That's interesting. Jason Ball has a good question as well. As blocks evolve over time and markup changes, it seems like CSS will become more difficult to maintain, as blocks with the old markup will exist in content and new blocks with new markup will exist in new content. That's perceptive. Normally with shortcodes, you could update the markup in one spot, but with blocks, it seems like there's no central place to control markup and styles. How should we think about managing the evolution of blocks and markup over time if they're stored in content?
Well, that's actually a pretty great question. I'm
It is.
afraid that there are a group of developers. It's like you are kind of trying to ask me, should I use spaces or tabs?
Yeah.
So I can't really tell you if it's GIF or GIF, but what I can tell you that we are moving towards a point in WordPress development have some sort of a standard way of building a page builder for WordPress. And that page builder is Gutenberg right now. And since we will start using Gutenberg, that standard way will also narrate down to building a standard way of building, a Gutenberg block, or maybe multiple ways of architecting your CSS. You can have your CSS just confined in your single little component, and you can use something like Create Storybook to test if that CSS leaks out of that component or not, and is very exciting. Right now you can also use CSS and JS. You can take a look at styled components project, like 20,000 developers are using that project, and it's quite successful. So there are different in the JavaScript community from where you will be able to pick whatever fits well with your business model, with your product, and you will be able to just adopt it and use it. Right now I'm using CSS and JS, and I'm actually thinking about ditching Sass in favor of using CSS4. And I've been scared to do that for a couple of years now. But CSS inside of a component makes it a lot more maintainable than anything that I have ever worked with. I've worked with this React, project, and I'm able to just import all of that project inside of my WordPress environment because of Gutenberg. And every component has its own CSS. Other thing that you mentioned about being the blocks code being in the database, and that is a huge debate. And
Yep.
it's similar to that spaces versus tabs debate. We all have our opinion here. What I would suggest you or any other developer to do is that we should lead by example. Create a good architecture that you think is right. Create a demo plugin related to it, demo theme related to it, and see how it picks up. Either it is just you or 500 other developers supporting your stats. And that is how we are going to drive standardization in what I call the Guten-block age for WordPress right now. But there's
Nice.
no decided one single way of moving forward.
Yeah, you navigated that well. It is tricky, and there is a lot of things that are still being heavily debated in Gutenberg development in general. And the Gutenberg GitHub repo is a great place to dig into things like that for sure. Because for me personally, I love to participate in GitHub repos and read through issues in big open source projects, because it's just a great way to learn and observe and see how people make decisions and see how they choose certain things because of certain benefits and whatnot. And so far for me, the Gutenberg repo has been the most active repo of any public one that I've participated in. I'm sure there's other much larger ones. But it's been really, really educational for me over there. Jason has another really good question that I want to talk about as well. It's common practice to never trust the client and do validation instead on the server. Are there, as there is no real server-side API for Gutenberg, what are recommendations for validating input from blocks on the server? That's a really good question.
I'm not really sure about this one. It's really a hard one, but I think so. You are wrong when you say that there is no API, because I have seen that being built and being cooked right inside the Gutenberg's core code. And if you try to have different edit component and something even that leaks into your save save function of Gutenberg, there's this thing that I think Andrew cooked in, which uses some sort of a validation API, and it kind of just rejects and it does not display that code to the user, and it kind of just rejects accepting that particular code in your Gutenberg environment. Instead of specifically answering here, I'd rather keep this question open for people who know better than I do in this particular area to answer. I think there are approaches where you can easily validate your whatever the user is entering, both with JavaScript, because in Gutenberg model, you have a state-based model. Everything that user enters or everything, whatever is happening in Gutenberg actually goes to that state. And that state only communicates with the database. That is how Gutenberg is so fast as compared to anything else we have seen. And in that state, there are a lot of things that you can find in the React community, which can help you do server-side, state rendering, server-side state validation, and whatnot. I have not actually done that. But there is a possibility of doing that. That is how actually we built the entire React application and have the user membership feature in there, where someone can register and use the forget password feature or whatnot. States are pretty cool. I recommend you to have at them.
Yeah, nice. No, that's a good point. I mean, in general, it's great that there was a lot of debate about adopting React as the framework in Gutenberg, specifically when Facebook kind of like started indicating that they might make React a bit more proprietary than WordPress would ever be comfortable with. But since they've pulled back from that, I think it seems like Matt and Automatic are going to move forward with the React in Gutenberg. But the big benefit there is that we benefit from all of the development, the public and open source development that happened around the React project before it's in WordPress. Like you're saying, if you have questions about validation in general, there's a ton of React developers out there who have dealt with that already. So in some ways, we get to benefit from that development before we even start really having this in WordPress. Jason's got another question. Let's do this. Jason says, since blocks are largely defined client-side, how can third-party editors, Calypso, native apps, whatnot, edit WordPress content without any knowledge of client-defined blocks?
Okay, I think so. There have been talk about building a Gutenberg API. I'm not sure about the progress of that particular pull request. But the idea was, since there is a way of building blocks, there's a defined markup for blocks. It will be in near future easier to build an API over it, where different services would be able to collaborate with your Gutenberg blocks. Right now, how I am doing this thing is I'm using WordPress REST API to build a custom endpoint inside of my particular, application or plugin, whatever you want to call it. I have knowledge of what I am building, and I have the knowledge of what things that I want to expose to a public REST through a public REST API. And through these two things, since I know what my blog is going to be, plus my custom REST, I can connect my third-party app with these things and have this information flow between my app. I have yet to see how the Gutenberg API is going to be. I have never used it, but there's definitely a lot of talk related to that. And there's also a pull request related to having a completely compatible version of these blocks in PHP as well.
Yeah,
so
I think
things are growing in this perspective, and that is why we need people like you to be there and the GitHub rep of Gutenberg and contribute there.
Yep. I think also a big benefit of the way Gutenberg is going is that I do think anecdotally, and I feel like Matt Mullenweg even commented on this in our Facebook group recently, that Gutenberg itself is going to help enhance the WordPress REST API. That is actually going to help build it out because there's going to be more need for more endpoints over time. And because several years ago, Matt Mullenweg said that essentially the full WordPress REST API would be in core when it could manipulate everything in the admin, but you can't really do that without the endpoints. And with Gutenberg there, it actually feels like it brings the REST API that's way over here and Gutenberg API way over here and hopefully bring them closer together so that the REST API actually benefits the admin a whole lot more. I don't know. That's just me kind of reading the cards on the table. So cool. Looks like we're
You're right about that.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be right. I try to pay attention, but it's just what I'm thinking at the moment. We'll see what happens. Luckily, in 2 weeks, we're going to get to ask Matt what he thinks about that. So, and Tammy will have plenty thoughts on that as well, I'm sure. So, great. Well, we've reached
poetry.
Yeah, we've reached the end of our questions, and this is just about the right time to wrap it up. Ahmad, any last comments and or ideas or suggestions for Gutenberg and extending it for everyone?
Yeah, I would just say that, jump right in and start looking at the attributes feature of attributes property of register block function in the Gutenberg. Once you just understand that particular single concept, you would instantly know what Gutenberg is all about. And you will start to appreciate how easy it is to build and extend WordPress with Gutenberg and how before Gutenberg with the classic editor. So
nice.
That's pretty much about it. Just jump right in, use create-guten-block, and see what's come next to WordPress 5.0.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. We are the same day. We're on Monday next week with Tammy Lister, and it will be at 9 a.m. Pacific. So set your calendar and be ready to ask her some great questions about the UI and the UX of Gutenberg and about the inside happenings for the Gutenberg core team. Thanks so much, everybody. See you later.